What's up, the world? It's your boy Tommy Malv, and I came in because, as I said, I generally don't make, I'm not, I guess I would not make the assertion that, that I'm a person who makes videos based on current trends. I make videos about things I want to talk about. And one of the things I want to talk about today is this whole, in the discourse with a lot of the people watching my videos, I come across something that really gets under my skin, right? I don't know. Like I said, I'm not into politics. I'm not a big politics guy, and I generally don't spend my time, trying to dissect every single thing that comes across my face as some sort of larger, narrative to things. I just tend to when things annoy me or irk me, I tend to speak on them. When they don't annoy or irk me, I tend to just ignore them. But in this specific instance, in my discourse, I've come across something that annoys me, right? This idea of these guys, certain players, being basketball savants. This is something that has come across time and time again. It kind of comes back to the black quarterback athlete, white quarterback, brainy. It's a narrative that's constantly pushed, and it's only pushed because the majority of the people reporting on the sports are nerdy guys, white guys to be more specific. And I'm not talking about like ex-athletes with podcasts. I'm talking about the people who are only there because they were fans. They never actually played. Most of the people who are there talking and they've never actually played and they're just critics are white guys, right? So most of the time when they speak on issues or they speak on things, they like to act as if intelligence is somehow inherently white. So when they speak about things, and a lot of times these people, this is why I always get into people with the whole liberal, conservative things. I think racism does not have a party. I think people tend to mask their ignorance in racism, and I think racism and ignorance seem to be in the same basket. It doesn't, like most people who are ignorant tend to be racist, and most people who are racist tend to be ignorant. So when you're sitting here, you're having conversations with people who pride themselves on intelligence and being well-rounded thinkers, they generally can't avoid these black spots in which they don't understand things because they drop into a level of ego where you have to admit you don't understand stuff. For most people, that's a hard thing to do. We don't ever want to just say, I don't know. And I think that's the folly of us as a people, as a species. We don't ever like to just say, I don't know. And so when you're having a conversation with people and you see the subtle racism, right? And the minute you make a discussion or you have a talk about a white player, he's a heady player, he's smart, no, he's not. What makes him smart? Austin Reeves, he's like in his third game, he's a smart player. What makes him a smart player? And you never heard them when SGA came out saying he's a smart player. They never said that. Him and SGA have a similar game, right? Why didn't they ever say that about SGA? They never applauded his IQ. Trey, I remember the guy for the Atlanta Hawks. Trey, what's his name? I don't remember. Everybody know what I'm talking about. But Trey averaged 11, 12 assists in college, came into the NBA, hit the ground running. Nobody ever talks about his basketball IQ. Nobody ever talks about how smart he is. Nobody. Right? If you sit there and you hear basketball IQ, that is generally reserved for heady veteran players who have been there for a while, unless they are white, right? And then every time there's a white player that's good, no matter how athletic he is, Austin Reeves is athletic. He's a good dribbler. He's a good, talented player. He got IQ. His IQ is good. Nobody is saying it, but there's a lot of black players who have great IQ as well. Norman Powell has great basketball IQ. Paul George has great basketball IQ. Kevin Durant has great basketball IQ. Nobody ever talks about them in their intellect. When you talk about intellect, it's reserved for the same 3 or 4 players. Jokic, Luka Doncic, LeBron, who is an actual, he earned his title. Chris Paul earned his title. Nikola Jokic is not a dumb player. Nikola Jokic is a very intelligent player. That does not mean he's a basketball savant. It does not take a basketball savant to pass out of a double team. If 2 people are on me, somebody's open. All I gotta do is keep my head up and look for the open person. That does not mean I have a basketball IQ. I am not standing at the top of the key saying, you move here, now we're gonna, so when they switch, you gotta go here and you gotta go there. They're not doing that. Jokic is not doing that. Jokic is going to the middle of the key, condensing, he can't condense a defense off the dribble. So what he does is he goes into the paint. The big men have been doing this forever. David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing. These are all guys. What's that guy? The guy. His son plays now. Big Country Reeves, but also that guy. His son plays. I can't remember his name either. I'm getting old. But the guy for the Kings. He plays for the Kings now. He also used to play like that. That is not a new thing. Where you play with your back, you pass with your back to the basket. Big men have been doing that forever. Bill Russell did that. Wilt Chamberlain did that. That does not make you a basketball savant. But the minute somebody is doing it, who is white and a marquee player, they don't want to just say he's a good basketball player. No, he's not this. He's just a heady, smart player. Jokic is there because he is big and he is dominant, because he's big and he's skilled. That's why Jokic is good. Not because he's smarter than everybody else. He's big and he is skilled for a big man. Period. In the story. His IQ is not somehow smarter than every other big man in the league. No. He just understands that when the defense condenses, look for the open man. You do not have to be a basketball savant to do that. You actually don't even have to be every player in the league knows how to do that. The only difference is the offense in Denver is predicated around him doing that. Meaning he's going to get way more plays doing that because he has the autonomy for them to pass him the ball and for him to hold it. Now, I'm not going to put Jokic in the same category as Luka Doncic, right? Jokic does not hold the ball for 30 minutes. Jokic will let the ball go, move off the ball, find another spot where he knows they're going to have to double team him, then he'll pass it. So I have no problem with saying that Jokic is a smart player. He's not a basketball savant. Okay? He is not doing what LeBron does. He is not doing what Chris Paul, Jason Kidd, John Stockton, Steve Nash. He's not doing what those guys were doing. So I don't think that's a fair comparison to try to compare him like he's doing what these guys who were actual pure point guards were doing. These guys were playing, reading defenses, standing at the top of the key, making movements so that they can get the right switches, or running plays that they think fits the defense that will work against the defenses they're playing against. That is not what Jokic is doing. He's not running plays. He's going into spots, catching balls in the block, making them condense, and when they condense, he's passing. That's it. Luka Doncic is not doing that. Luka Doncic is not a high basketball IQ guy. People think because he cuts to the hole, and people double him, and he passes to a streaking dunker or a wide open person for a three, that he's a basketball savant. That does not make you a basketball savant. When you hold the ball, as long as Luka does, most of the time, once you finally let it go, there's not enough time for the next person to pass it. They're gonna either have to shoot it up, or they're gonna get a 24-second violation. That's just how it works. Nobody is saying that Luka Doncic is an idiot. What I'm saying is, Luka Doncic plays almost exactly like James Harden. No one ever said that James Harden was a basketball savant. Nobody ever said that. They criticized him and said that his style of play was selfish. His style of play was him first. They criticized the fact that he was out of shape. They criticized the fact that he used to go to clubs and this, that, and the third. What is the difference between him and Luka Doncic? Somebody explain to me. Luka Doncic is always out of shape. He's constantly bad on defense. Why did Harden get so much flack and Luka get so much praise? All he did was copy James Harden's style. Word for word, ball for ball. Straight up. Hold the ball, dribble, 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 dribble. James Harden, he's the dribbler. He holds the ball too long. Yeah, his usage rate is crazy. What about Luka? He plays no defense. He's out of shape. He's bad at that. What about Luka? He don't have a basketball body, wouldn't you agree? His body ain't better than Harden's body was. Somebody explain to me why he doesn't get the same flack. Why did he get called a basketball savant? While James Harden gets called lazy. Prima donna. All about him. Luka Doncic does the same thing and nobody says anything. Except for praising him for how high his intellect is. For scoring less points and getting less assists than James Harden did doing the same thing. James Harden never. They refused to give him an MVP. I think he got one. This man's shattering records, doing the same thing Luka's doing. All they would say is he does this and that, and then he gets to the playoffs and can't do nothing. What's the difference between him and Luka? James Harden best year, Chris Paul and him. Luka's best year, Kyrie Irving and him. What you sit there and you look at the situation. I can see why Nico would say, I'd rather have Kyrie Irving, who I know at least knows it does not have this crazy usage rate like Luka Doncic does. He gets other players involved. He's closer to a true point guard than Luka Doncic is. Luka Doncic is selfish. He plays the game ignorantly. He's constantly dribbling into double teams. He's constantly dribbling into triple teams and forcing up shots when there's people open. He's doing this constantly. And you're watching it and you see how easy it is to do, because Austin Reeves, when he doesn't play, does the same thing. It's not hard to do. But it is daunting for the other players who have to cover for you when you're dribbling into triple teams Soon as they block the ball, two people taking off running while you sitting up there looking for the ball while they're running. That person who steals the ball grabs it, throws it ahead. Now they got a 2v1. You got to be smarter. But nobody cares about him being smarter because people are happy that he can score points. And not only are they happy, they're actually applauding his style of basketball. They're actually telling people he's smarter than everybody else for doing the same thing they criticized James Harden for 2-3 seasons ago. This is how hypocritical the media is. They could not find it in their heart to find a silver lining in the way James Harden played, but they found nothing but silver linings in the way that Luka Doncic has played. I wonder why. Because they cannot help it. They don't care. They're not going to crap on Luka Doncic because he's the closest thing they have to a white guy that they can put in the conversation. Right? They put the guy in the conversation, and he's an amazing player. Nobody would deny that. But if you're going to criticize James Harden, you can't not criticize Luka Doncic because he's a white player who is dominant and you don't want to make him look bad. Because you create a dualism. Now people are going to point out and say, that's not what you were saying about James Harden. It's not what you didn't say that about James Harden. And when nobody coming to James Harden's defense, they got highlights online of people running around James Harden like he's standing still. They got the same highlights of Luka Doncic. Why don't you criticize Luka Doncic more? They criticize James Paul. Luka Doncic for James Harden for running off Chris Paul. The minute Chris Paul left, that style of play was worse. They were terrible. And the same thing is going to happen with Luka when you run off LeBron. That style of play does not work. It's the same thing that happened with Luka when he lost Kyrie. If you don't have another player on there who can do the things you can't, it's going to be extremely hard for you to be dominant. These guys don't understand that. All they think is, I'm going to go out here and score 50, and when I score 50, everybody's going to tell me I'm the greatest player in the world. Why? Because they already have. The Denver Nuggets have been piddling around, not doing nothing, while this man's been called the smartest man in basketball for the last 4 years. All these white coaches coming out of the woodwork. Guys who are notoriously critical of players. Stan Van Gundy. George Karl. These guys are notoriously haters up when it comes to star players. But all of a sudden, both of them love Nikola Jokic. Hey, did they come out of woodwork when Giannis was killing it with his with his efficiency rating and all that? Nope. Didn't hear a word from either one of them. When LeBron was killing it, did you hear words from George Karl? Not a word. Now Luka Doncic, they both love Luka and they both love Jokic. I wonder why. Ain't got a good word to say about Harden, ain't got a good word to say about LeBron, ain't got a good word to say about Ja Morant, ain't got a good word to say about no other player except for the two white players that are playing well. Not playing the best, mind you, just playing well. This guy said Nikola Jokic is a top 5 player all time. Nikola Jokic, who couldn't guard a lamppost, is a top 5 player all time. His team, since that championship, that weak championship, mind you, where they beat a down terrible NBA riddled with injuries. That one championship, Since that, they have been mediocre. But he has still been getting praised. Why? Why is he still getting praised, but Giannis is not? They're criticizing Giannis because he can't make it back to a championship, while Jokic is sitting in the cut, not winning anything, still getting their praise. Why? Can you make the connection? Because it dang sure seems to me like there's a pattern there. You guys can find the silver lining all the time when people look like you. But when people don't look like you, they're an other. I'm not saying that there's racism in basketball is so bad. Oh my gosh, it's so racist. No. I'm saying there's a reason for narratives. And when people care more about narratives than they care about reporting facts, you're going to get a messy media. You're going to get a media that you cannot trust because their narratives are always going to be more important than the facts. And they will not let the facts mess up their narrative because the narrative is what sells, not the facts. They know that the white readers want to hear that white players are smarter. That their way of winning is not athleticism. They're never going to be as athletic as the black guys. So the way that they can do it is they can tell all these guys who love the sport that their style of play was smarter and more intellectual, and therefore that's how you're supposed to play the basketball game. So they're going to push up players. When they talk about the WNBA, they say the majority of men who watch the WNBA are old school white guys. Why? Because they like that style of play. But I only question why they like a guy like Luka Doncic when they didn't like a guy like James Harden. Why they like a guy like Jokic when they did not like a guy. They did like Giannis, so I'm not even going to say that. But the point I'm trying to say is the Luka Doncic Harden thing is more important, right? Luka does not play like a LeBron, Chris Paul, John Stockton, Jason Kidd. Luka doesn't play like that. So you like him though? Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to assume you like him for reasons other than basketball because he does not fit the pattern of all the other basketball players you tend to like. Just me. I might be wrong. Might be looking too far into it with the boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, but when I'm looking at it, I can only assess things from my point of view. And from my point of view, there is no reason why there is such vitriol for James Harden and completely disregards everything that man did. Yet the same people can't do nothing but find good in Luka Doncic. I don't like it. I don't like it. I think it is blatant media bias, and if you're going to not and it's blatant media bias from its people from the white media, because the white media are always at the forefront of tearing down black athletes, but when it comes to their athletes, they're very protective of them. I don't like that. Have the same energy for this one that you have for that one, and you will never hear anybody call you out for the discrepancy. But the minute you start to show favoritism towards specific people based on your specific likes or dislike, then you have shown yourself to be a biased juror. We can no longer trust your judgment. And what I see is a lot of guys who look at Luka Doncic and see a white guy. They don't see a selfish guy who dribbles and holds the ball, plays no defense, and dribbles into double teams constantly. If Luka was black, they would be calling him selfish. They would be saying his style of play is never going to work. They would be saying all the things they said about James Harden. But they can't, because when they do, they look at him, they see a white guy. And they see their son, and they see their brother, and they see their nephew, and they see these people. This guy's style of play opens up a door in which people who look like me might get more opportunities. And I can't hate a person for thinking like that. But you gotta understand that when you do that, people are going to at some point stretch their chin and start to say, "Look, bro, I understand that you look at this man as a possible wave of player that could open the doors for many of white players." And I 100% can empathize with not wanting to rock the boat and criticize him too much, because then it may undermine the movement. I get it. But people are going to call you out for it when they see blatant discrepancies in the way that you judge it. So all I'll say is, don't criticize James Harden. Then nobody will call you out for criticizing Luka Doncic. Don't criticize LeBron, because nobody will call you out for not criticizing Austin Reeves or Luka Doncic. Don't criticize Ja Morant. Nobody will call you out for not criticizing Tyler Hero. Don't criticize, and then what's that kid over in OKC where his story just kind of limped under the radar about him trying to talk to a little kid? Nobody will call you out if you don't. But they always have to criticize the black athlete because it's a level of jealousy there. So it irks them. It makes them mad. So when they see this, the first thing they do is try to find something wrong with it. They're not looking at it from the standpoint of saying, hey, if we continue to criticize these people in that way, we're going to get pushback. Right? The same people that criticize Shedeur Sanders are the same people that love Jackson Dart. People are going to point that out. You can't sit up there and criticize and hate that type of athlete than with somebody who looks like you, Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, Jackson Dart. When these guys come along, now all of a sudden you ain't got that same energy. People are going to call it out. They're going to say, bruh, you not consistent. Oh, here we go bringing the race card in. No, that's the problem. Nobody is bringing in the race card. They're pointing out obvious things. You're not being consistent. And instead of you answering the question, you're deflecting. You don't want to answer the question I put up. Why do you have a different energy for him than you have for him? Oh, I'm not gonna. Here we go. Everything's about. You conveniently sidestep the question. Are you treating him differently than you've treated every other kid who's had that type of bravado? All these players, they were going to draft Blaine Gabbert over Cam Newton. Plethora of sports writers was saying that Cam Newton was going to be terrible. You should draft Blaine Gabbert. Blaine Gabbert was horrible. He was just the only alternative to Cam Newton. And they hated Cam Newton because they said he was too cocky. He was this, that, and that, third. Guess what? Blaine Gabbert was what everybody who had an ounce of understanding knew he was going to be. A bust. He was terrible. Nobody ever thought he was good until they started to compare him. Right? Johnny Manziel was undersized, ran a gimmick offense in college, was a terrible reader of defense, always had more interceptions. I mean, about as many interceptions as he had touchdowns. Used to go out and party before games, get drunk, high, everything else before games. And the Cleveland Browns had no problem drafting him in the first round. Tim Tebow, my former teammate, nice guy, do not dislike him in any way. But do you find it odd that he still found a way to be drafted in the first round? Even though they had all these questions about him. No problem at all. Nobody's gonna question it, right? But before that, nobody's gonna call out the fact that all these other guys like Tyrod Taylor and all these other guys who came in before him had to get drafted in the 5th, 6th round. But you drafted him in the 1st round when he has no experience in a pro style offense and has a bad arm. Okay, that's fine. People can believe what they want to believe. All I can say is that that's pretty compelling evidence that calls into question your level of consistency. I don't care. I don't care what race a person is if I think they're good. I don't care. I have no problem giving a critique of somebody that I don't think is good. I'm consistent. I don't like players that chunk up a lot of shots, and I don't like players that hold the ball long and play no defense. That means you're getting all the credit when the team does good, and you're not doing your part. Everybody else is doing the grunt work to make you look good, and I've never been a fan of that. I've never liked a player like that. You don't have me on a track record saying I like anybody who plays like that. I do not like that. I don't like a player who is not well-rounded. I have never liked a player who is well-rounded. And I'm not going to change my opinion because the two players that are not well-rounded just happen to be white this time. No, that's not how it works. So, when you got a guy like Baker Mayfield getting picked number 1 overall, who's short, has questionable arm, questionable hand size, and you pick him number 1 over Lamar Jackson and all these other great players, yeah, somebody's gonna call him and question what he has. Oh, that same bravado, that same believing in himself, that same confidence that you excoriate the black players for, you pick him first overall because he has. Why? Why that ability to put butts in the seat that Johnny Manziel had or Tim Tebow had? Why is it an asset? And all the other measurables become less valuable when the person looks like you. Now I'm gonna draft him in the 1st round. Now I'm gonna draft Johnny Manziel in the 1st round. I'm gonna draft Baker Mayfield 1st overall, even though he has all these red flags. But then I'm gonna criticize and try to find reasons to not draft a guy like Shedeur Sanders, who has never had no problem with anybody and has never had no situation in which you would clarify that as anything like the things Baker Mayfield did. Eli Manning told the Chargers if they draft him, he would not play. So did John Elway. They drafted them anyways. 1st overall. 1st, not 2nd, not 3rd, 1st. Do you think Eli Manning deserved to be 1st overall pick over a guy like Ben Roethlisberger or Phillip Rivers? No, he didn't. It was his lineage. It was his connection to his bloodline. It was all based on his identity. Nothing to do with him as a specific player. So when you sit there and you watch that, and you see them, when Deion Sanders comes in and tries to do the same thing, and you drop his son to the 5th round, people are going to look at you and they're going to ask the question of, bruh, you're not being consistent, NFL. You're not being consistent. Let's keep some consistency. Because if Shedeur Sanders was white, I don't think he drops to the 5th round. A guy from a family just like the Mannings has a track record of being a coach's kid, very smart, very pliable. We're going to drop you to the 5th because we don't like your dad. But Arch Manning is on record threatening teams, and you had no problem with him. People are going to question, what's the difference? Oh, here we go about race. That's the problem. when you can deflect answering a question by just pointing out that it's about race, you're the one that is doing the mental gymnastics, not me. I'm pointing out what's right in front of me and asking you to explain. You're bringing up something that is not in front of us. The discussion on the table is not whether or not people bring up race too much. The question is whether or not that is applicable to this specific discussion. It's not. I'm bringing it up because it's relevant. Why is your energy different from him for him than it is for him? And then when I pointed out, you called me a racist with no evidence to support your claim, outside of me pointing out the inconsistencies in your argument and the fact and your proximity to the demographic that you're supporting, as opposed to the demographic you're excoriating and criticizing. No. You're not going to scare people off from talking about race by just attacking them for talking about race. People are going to force you to answer that question because they are not going to be bullied into not talking about things that make you uncomfortable. Because what makes you uncomfortable is something that constantly makes them uncomfortable. That stuff they have to deal with, they shouldn't have to deal with because it is inconsistent. Looking for anything to pounce on the black athlete for, because you have a bunch of nerdy, I hate jock reporters who hate anybody, who white or black, who are athletic, but they know they can't attack that white athlete, because if they attack that white athlete, those white fans are going to eat them alive. Those white guys are beloved. The best black players get to be is polarizing. Meaning, some people like him, some people hate him. Almost every, outside of Michael Jordan, I can't think of a black athlete who is braggadocious, loud, confident, who is not polarizing at best. They don't care. But the white athlete who's braggadocious and confident and all these things, he's a legend. The guy who walks up to people and talks down to them and says, hey, get your shit together. Peyton Manning, they love that. He's a sheriff. Let Michael Vick try that. That boy needs to learn his place. Who is he? What makes him think he can talk to people like that? Oh, I get it. I can't say it because then I would be bringing up race. But I get it. We have some consistency. Tom Brady yelling at his coaches, cursing out his teammates, not passing people the ball when their contracts are on the line. Don't matter. He's a consummate. He's the best. He's this, and he is. Don't change the fact that you're not consistent. Because if Cam Newton did that, he'd be a diva. If Cam Newton talked to his teammates the way Peyton Manning and and Tom Brady talked to their teammates, he would have got annihilated. There wouldn't have been no silver lining in that discussion. There would have been selfish. Who does this guy think he is? Players know they can criticize the black quarterback. They know they can go on the media and say whatever they want because at best, they're going to get polarizing. Some people think he shouldn't have done that. Some people think he does. Try that with Peyton Manning and see if you have a job the next day. You remember Vanderjack? How long did he last after he criticized Peyton Manning? Guarantee you the same situation wouldn't have happened if he would have criticized Cam. just being honest. It wouldn't have happened that way. He wouldn't have got fired. He wouldn't have lost his job. Get up there and try to criticize Tom Brady and see how that works for you. Criticize Herbert and be on his team and see what happens to you. Criticize Josh Allen. What happened? The guy who's balling right now for the New England Patriots. What's his name? Diggs. Criticize Josh Allen. Out of there. They criticize the players criticize black quarterbacks all the time. On their team. Media report comes out, says that he's lost, that the players have this and da. Players coming out, coaches directly criticizing the quarterbacks. Never see them doing that with the white quarterbacks. You never see them criticizing those players in the media, but they do it all the time with the black quarterbacks. Okay. It's not hard for somebody to point out, hey, that's kind of inconsistent. You're kind of not being consistent in the way that you're attacking this problem. You're kind of double talking. Anyway, I talked long enough about this. Like I said, I'm not a politic guy. I'm not somebody who like to spend my time on this stuff. But it made me tap into something that I feel is extremely real. You know what I mean? I feel as if people are inconsistent on things, and then when you point out the inconsistency in things, you're the racist. So at the end of the day, I don't care. I don't think the vast majority of the NBA media is racist. I think the majority of NBA media is biased. They have their bad biases, they have their connections, but I think there is a more consistent bias when you're talking about race, because the majority of people who are in positions of power, who are the people who are analyzing and talking about these things, they tend to align themselves with a certain thing. And I'm not saying that this is consistent all the time. I'm saying that when it comes to people talking about people being savants and basketball geniuses, it tends to be reserved for specific people, unless they look a certain way. So, regardless, anyways, please comment, like, subscribe, and let me know what y'all think. All right, y'all. Peace.